Morning, everybody. It is the 12th of May 2026, the Environmental and Community Services Committee. Do we have any applications for attending a meeting via video link?
Yes, Madam Chair. We've got one application from Councillor Stolz for attendance via audio-visual due to him being ill and unable to travel. We do have the problem with the video, but we do have audio, so we've set him up on a phone.
Okay, so can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Clout. Seconder, Councillor McGill. All in favour? Councillor Ryan, are you in favour? Oh, you're not.
He's not a voting member.
You're just an attendee. Thank you for coming. Apologies.
No, there's no apologies, Madam Chair.
Disclosures of interest.
Nil received so far.
Site inspections.
None for this meeting.
Okay, so we'll move on to
public participation.
Public participation.
So, Madam Chair, we did have a request for a speaker for item ECSC 5.1 being the storage shed. The speaker was Stephen Bridge, who was the applicant. He's contacted us today and said that despite him making an application to speak, he's been held up. He notes that the report is in favour of being approved. However, he has just made the final request that if there's an indication that the committee may not approve it, he'd ask that it be deferred so he could make time to speak at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to that item. So it is DA 95/2025 storage shed with amenities, 53 McAdam Street, Aberdeen. Mr. Pringle, would you like to speak to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this application is for a shed measuring 24 by 12 by 6 metres at 53 McAdam Street in Aberdeen. It's been referred to the committee because we've received one submission objecting to the proposal, which was received during the notification period. Up on the screen and on page 4 of the report, you'll see there's a site plan showing the location of this proposed shed. The shed will be used for the storage of personal vehicles, equipment and goods. As you can see in the image there, it's on quite a large block of about 2.8 hectares, and there's generous setbacks from the property boundaries. I think it's about
30.07 metres.
Yeah, 33.
Well, yeah,
33 metres from the nearest boundary, so it's quite a decent setback. The application, the other thing I'll mention is it's zoned R1 General Residential under the LEP, and the proposed shed is permissible with consent. The application was notified to adjoining and nearby landowners from the 8th of October to the 22nd of October, and we received one submission. The submission raised concerns regarding potential noise from machinery and possible operation of a firewood business and the presence of a shipping container. The inclusion of amenities within the shed and the orientation of the shed doors towards an adjoining dwelling. So these matters have been considered in the assessment of the application. However, the concerns primarily relate to potential operational or compliance issues rather than the built form of the structure. These matters, including any unauthorised use of the shed, that not forming part of this consent can be addressed separately through Council's compliance and regulatory functions, if required. In terms of amenity impacts of the proposal, the site's significant size and generous setbacks, as I mentioned before, provide effective separation from adjoining dwellings, and which will reduce the likelihood of unreasonable amenity impacts. So whilst the site is currently identified as a general heritage item in the LEP, it is proposed to be removed from the heritage schedule, which is part of an LEP amendment the Council recently endorsed. The site is also flood prone. However, the application included a flood impact assessment, which demonstrated the site can be appropriately serviced and developed without resulting in any adverse flood impacts on adjoining properties. So the proposal has been assessed in accordance with section 4.15 of the Environmental Planning Assessment Act, and has been recommended for approval subject to conditions of consent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we'll look to move this first and then we can open discussion. Moved. Councillor Clout, seconded. Councillor McGill, any comments or discussion?
Yeah, just a question through you, Chair. Will the existing shed go, or is that still part of going to stay?
The application, through you, Madam Chair, doesn't include any demolition works, so I'm assuming it will stay unless it's in the exact location of the proposed shed.
So today we're looking simply at the application, not any usage of the application, correct?
Yes, yeah, so the usage of the shed will be for storage of equipment and vehicles and so forth. That's what's proposed in the application. But any existing issues that have been identified in the submission should be dealt with separately through our compliance functions.
Yeah. So any kind of work that has the concern could have been done with and without a shed anyway, correct?
Well, we'd need to look into that a bit further,
Yeah.
depending on what the type of activity is,
Yeah.
whether it's commercially, whether it's business related or whether it's residential or domestic.
Okay.
Yes, and just one other question. This is rather a large shed. Is that, are there restrictions on the size of shed in this sort of zone?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we acknowledge it is quite a large shed. However, as I said, given the generous setbacks and the size of the block, we thought that this shed was appropriate for this location.
Okay, so let's, any more questions? Okay, so shall we vote on it? All in favour? So it's carried. Okay, for our second item, it is ECSC 0.5.2. It is a regularisation of an existing cattle feedlot and increased capacity to 4,100 head. Mr Pringle, do you want to comment to this?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So this application is being referred to the Committee and Council as one submission has been received, which I'll run through shortly. The development, actually, the application came in on the 7th of May 2024 as designated development, and the applicant subsequently lodged an amended environmental impact statement, and there were a number of requests for further information which were addressed prior to placing the application on exhibition on the 1st of August 2025. So it's taken quite a bit of time to get here, but there's been a lot of going back and forth with the applicant for this proposal. There's actually a detailed chronology of the application in the Development Assessment Report in Attachment 2. As you said, the application is to regularise an existing feedlot and expand it to a maximum capacity of 4,100 head of cattle. The land's owned RU1 primary production, and intensive livestock agriculture is permitted with consent. The site itself comprises 7 rural land titles. I think we've got an image of the site up on the screen, which has a combined area of actually 480 hectares. I know the report says 1,500 square metres, obviously that's an error. 480 hectares. It has a 2 kilometre frontage to the Golden Highway and a 1.3 kilometre frontage to Idaville Road. The application has obviously been assessed in detail, and some of the key issues that we identified during that assessment include impacts on surface and groundwater, water supply, air quality, dust and odour, transport, biosecurity and animal welfare. There's some of the key issues that we looked at. These are all covered in detail in the assessment report in Attachment 2. So based on the findings of the assessment, we found that with the proper regulatory oversight and adherence to mitigation measures, the feedlot can proceed without significant adverse effects on the environment. It's considered the key issues of air quality, groundwater, surface water and animal welfare have been resolved satisfactorily through amendments to the proposal and or in the recommended conditions of consent. In terms of the submission that I mentioned earlier, that predominantly raised concerns in relation to dust and odour, which those issues have been addressed in the report, and also mentioned that the DA was referred to the Environmental Protection Authority for concurrence, and the EPA issued its general terms of approval only last month. Those GTAs specify the environmental operating conditions for the development relating to discharges to air and water, water pollution, stormwater, sediment control, effluent and manure application, monitoring and reporting. So those general terms of approval have been included in the recommended conditions of consent. So the application has been recommended for approval, subject to those conditions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr Pringle. I think it's also important to note that this is land that is an RU1 primary production zone, and I think it's always really important to be mindful of how things are zoned when we're looking at this, which means that this is permitted, this type of infrastructure is permitted. Would we like to first move this and then open discussion? Who'd like to move? Councillor McGill, second by Councillor Clout.
Have you got anything to say? Troy? Go on.
Nothing. Okay. So would anyone like to ask questions or further clarification?
So this operation's been happening, what we're basically doing is regularising something that's been happening.
Yep. Okay, so all in favour? I'm assuming Councillor Stoltz is not
Are you
against?
saying yes? Are you in favour?
Yes, in favour.
So unanimous, thank you. Okay, so for our last item, ECSC 0.5.3, this is a shed with amenities and retaining wall, 15 Alabama Street, Scone. Mr Pringle, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this proposed shed is 9 metres by 9 metres by 3.9 metres. It's at 15 Alabama Street in Scone. I think we'll bring the plan up on the screen as well, just showing you the location of the shed on the property. The application was notified, and I note that no submissions were received. The application is being referred to the Committee and Council for determination because the development does involve an excavation cut of up to 1.8 metres on a sloping site. This exceeds the maximum permissible cut of 1 metre under our development control plan. The proposed shed, including the amenities and associated retaining wall, is considered appropriate for the subject residential lot, having regard to the site area and established residential use. The shed is consistent with ancillary outbuildings typically associated with residential development, and the structure will remain subordinate to the principal dwelling. Despite the non-compliance with the DCP, the excavation is considered acceptable as it is localised to the building platform and can be appropriately managed through conditions requiring structural engineering design, retaining wall construction and protection of adjoining land. The proposal has been assessed under the section 4.15 of the Environment Planning Assessment Act and is considered satisfactory and therefore is recommended for approval subject to conditions of consent.
Thank you. So can we have that moved so we can open up discussion? Thank you. Councillor McGill, seconded Councillor Clout. Anyone like to speak to this agenda item? Everyone happy?
Floor space ratio with the pool, the house and this shed, are we pushing that envelope?
Through you, Madam Chair, the floor space ratio only applies to the dwelling, doesn't include sheds or things like pools. So it's well within the maximum FSR for the site.
Okay, so shall we put it to the vote? All in favour?
Are you with us?
Sure am.
Are you in favour?
In favour.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so unanimous.
Thank you.
So that one is also carried. Okay, so thank you for your time today. We'll close the meeting at 10:47.